I've always wanted to be a professional musician. When I was 10, my parents, I wanted a guitar. I'd seen Cliff Richard and the Shadows on the telly. And having watched Hank and Bruce, I just wanted a guitar. And when I was 10 years old, and my parents managed to scrape enough money together to buy me one. And I played it on the very first day. This was Christmas 1958. And I don't know how I played it. Perhaps it came sort of tuned up. And it was a Framus. And I played Mary's Boy Child on the first day I got it. Simple one-finger chords, not a lot's changed there then. And I always aspired, yeah, to... having got my guitar, I was the kid who was sitting at school sort of staring out the window dreaming about being a pop star, you know, never actually realising that it would come true. So yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do. And I quickly moved on because we used to go down the local working man's club every weekend, and there was a duet playing down there, and this guy had a smashing guitar with a bowed front, and it was a Martin Coletti, Italian, I think. Am I right? Well, it couldn't be bleeding French, could it? Martin Coletti. And I managed to buy this guitar off this guy. And then I used to go up to the Co-op, where there was a band on every Saturday night. I used to go to the Co-op, and every week I would watch one shape of a chord, remember it, and go home and play it. I only went for 3 weeks. No, I never had any lessons on the guitar. I really just taught myself, literally by, you know, looking at books, and I was one of those people that went out and bought Burt Whedon's 1,000 chords a minute, whatever it was, you know. 1,000 notes a minute, and you know, you just pick up bits and pieces as you go along by watching other people. And I never really aspired to being a very fast playing lead guitarist, because what I loved to do was play and sing along. You know, I used to like some of the old songs, and I used to sing to my mum and stuff like that. And that's all I wanted to do really, was play rhythm, and that's all I've done. I never even tried to play lead. Just concentrated on rhythm, enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't actually aspire to be anybody particular really. I liked Marty Wilde. I loved Lonnie Donegan, Hank and Bruce, as I say. I loved the Searchers, and the Beatles, obviously, I loved, and just loads of people really, and Duane Eddy, the American Sound, the Everly Brothers. I liked all that, but I also liked Jim Reeves, and I liked Connie Francis, and so I liked kind of rock and roll and a bit of country as well. You know, I used to love Nat King Cole, and still do. Because my parents used to listen to a lot of that stuff, Jim Reeves and Patsy Cline and all that, you know, very melodic type stuff. And I suppose that's where I've got a lot of my melody. Also, my mum used to play the piano, quite badly, but she had a head for a tune, you know. And I guess that's where I got it from, because my dad wasn't musical at all. So I guess it came from my mum, and listening to a lot of these old records. I used to love Jim Reeves. I even used to like David Whitfield, and a lot of people won't remember him. I quite liked him. Not in that sort of way, I just quite liked him, that's all. Good voice. Well, what used to happen was my dad became a member of this organisation called the MEA, which is the Metropolitan Entertainers Association. And this was in Warren Street in London. And once a week we would come up to meetings where they would hold like shop windows for all the agents and bookers throughout the country. And you used to get on and play, you know, Babyface. I used to go and play Babyface. And this one guy spotted me and said, I want him to come and do a summer season at a holiday camp. So as soon as I left school, when I was 15, I had a couple of weeks at home. I didn't really know what was going on in the world at all, you know, and I'd packed my bags and left when I was 15 to go down to this holiday camp in Hayling Island. And I spent 6 months, 6 great months down there, playing in the bar and in the ballroom. Just a few songs I'd learned, you know, I could sit and play for 20 minutes, half an hour. And that was it. And I met a set of twins down there, who I teamed up with, and we formed a little trio and started playing the clubs all around the country, and it kind of went from there. And I got a summer season, we got a summer season at Butlins Holiday Camp, which is where I met Francis Rossi, because they were doing the same season. And the rest, as they say, is history. That was 65, that was when we met. We always wanted to be a rock band, because when I first came across a band called The Spectres down at Butlins, they were a rock band. And that band, of course, was going to turn into Status Quo. So we all left the Butlins camp, and I don't know how long it was after that, a few months, and then we got together. And you know, it all started off with Matchstick Men, and we became these kind of, you know, preemed pop stars, and it was great to have the hit record, of course it was, and Ice in the Sun. It was fantastic, be on top of the pops and everything, it was great. But we've been told what to do, how to move, how to dress, your hair's out of place, love, you know, and we didn't like that, and we weren't a rock band anymore, we were a psychedelic band now, with rock overtones, and nobody quite knew what we were. And quite frankly, after a year or so of it, at the end of like 69, so a couple of years, we rebelled against it and said, well, you know, let's just take a chance and turn our back on being pop stars, turn our backs on being pop stars, and just do it the way we want. So we went back to the jeans, which had to be ripped. We had plimsolls, which they were in those days. They weren't trainers, they were plimsolls, and they had to be rubbed around in the dirt. The jeans had to be ripped, the jacket had to be patched. You had to be unshaven and grow your hair as long as it would grow. And that's where I think we really found... We went out to Europe looking like that to play in Germany. Francis and I went to a club one night and we saw this couple dancing on the floor to the Doors' Roadhouse Blues. And it was so sexy. And I remember we both looked at one another and thought, well, we've got to play like that. We've got to play, gung, 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 gung. We've got to do it. And that's kind of where it all started, and the heads down boogie, because when we played in these clubs, all these the whole audience was like that, just headbanging, you know. So we thought, well, we'll do the same, just copy the audience, and that's what really forged the whole image of Quo. I always remember one gig where we had given up being pop stars, gotten onto, you know, much. Sort of grown our hair and not shaven, and everything was dirty and ripped, you know, and we'd become sort of, if you like, more towards rock stars than pop stars. And we started to play the club circuit throughout England, these kind of underground, heavy, sweaty clubs, you know. And then we advanced slightly and went into kind of halls, and we played the Lynx Pavilion in Cromer. And that's the most I ever, at the time, had earned in one night. I think I earned about 400 quid that night. And we broke the house record. There was, you know, about 1,000 people in there, crammed into this small hall. And in those days, it was cash in your hand, you know, after you finished, sit there, you know, dish the wedge out. 400 quid in 1971. It was a lot of money to earn in a night. And I remember getting home about 4 in the morning and going and waking my mum and dad up. And I literally did the one that you often see in films. Look at this. I threw all this money, pound notes then, threw all this money all over the room. And that was a fantastic experience, you know, 400 quid. I went out a few days later and I bought a Jag. you know, was earning money. I bought myself a Jag. I'd always said to my mum that I would have a Jag by the time I was 21, and I had one when I was 19. And if you had a Jag, you know, you'd made it. Or so I thought. Little did I know. Well, Francis and I have been together now for 40 years. You know, we have our times, Francis and me. You know, you have to have your own space sometimes. I mean, these days, you know, he has his dressing room, I have mine. It's important because you can't be, you know, the amount of gigs we do, you can't be together all the time. So, you know, we spend most of the day kind of doing our own thing, really. And we come together an hour or so before we go on. We have lunch together, and then we spend the afternoon chilling out. And then we'll come together, as I say, an hour before we go on. And so the vibe is right when you go out on stage, because, you know, if there's anything going on backstage, you can't take it out there with you. You can't. You know, you just got to go on there and let it rip, you know. So we're very aware of that. And that's touring. It's nowhere near as glamorous as people think it is. It's not parties or anything like that. I just can't do it anymore, you know. It used to be finish the gig, go straight to the bar, you know, shake the hangover off the next day and do the gig. I just can't do that anymore. We have to sort of look after ourselves on the road now. And we've got plenty of people around who do look after us very well. And it's really quite luxurious out there, really. It's hard to say really what keeps us going now. I suppose on a good night, it's still a rush to get, you know, to go on stage and, you know, see people enjoying themselves and see people, you know, leaping up and down in front of you and having a good time because of what you're doing. That still gives us a lift. You know, in the early days, just to be out on the road was just fantastic and just going mad, and, you know, these days it's a bit more refined. You know, the travelling can be quite arduous, really. But you got to do it. And if you like, the being on stage and playing is the bonus part of it, but you've got to do the travelling in between. And these days we tend not to fly so much because we just don't like flying, don't like airports. And so we travel on the bus. If we're going out to Europe, we get on the bus. It's a lovely bus. And we're all comfortable on there. We've got food, television. And so that's the way we do it. And it's still good fun out there. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Nothing really stops Quo from working. I had to have 12 weeks off to have an operation, you know, and the first gig was scheduled for 12 weeks after I went in hospital at Norwich City Football Ground. And sure enough, 12 weeks later, I was done and ready to rock again. I didn't know what to expect when I went on stage. I thought, well, because I hadn't exerted myself since the operation. And I thought, well, what's going to happen out there? I thought, am I going to go out there and as soon as I go, am I going to die? I didn't know. But I didn't. And I think, well, we must have done 20 or 30 gigs since then. But no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't think about it anymore. Best not to. And then my voice felt a bit. So I went and had it examined, and then they suspected this growths in my throat. So I had those taken out, and I couldn't speak for a month or more, much to some people's relief. And I eventually recovered from that, but not fully. I've never fully recovered from that. My voice isn't what it used to be, but I can still just about get away with it, you know. But it's not as powerful as it used to be. Quo's live audiences span right across Europe. Indeed, we're going to Russia in a few minutes. And Sweden, Germany, France, Belgium, Spain, right across Europe, really. Not Italy, funnily enough. I don't think we're sort of stylish enough for Italy. But most places across Europe are pretty big. And we can go to Australia. We go to Australia every 2 or 3 years and do a tour down there. And then on the way back, invariably, we come through America and we'll do a gig in LA, we'll do a gig in New York. Nobody turns up, but we just do a couple of gigs out there, you know. We've got a bit of a cult following in America, you know. We'll play to a couple of thousand people, and that does it. I've never understood why Quo didn't break America, because this band, by the very nature of what it does, good, earthy, down-to-earth rock and roll band, why we never conquered America, I don't know. I've never ever thought that it was down to the fact that we weren't good enough, because I've always felt this band is a very handsome rock band. It's in what it does and how it plays. I never quite understand America. I think something probably went wrong backstage, as it were, you know, with management, record companies, agents, and they just couldn't seem to agree. And so it never really happened in America, sadly. I think we've done about, I don't know, 90 odd shows this year, or we will have done by Christmas. And it's quite punishing. And you know, maybe next year we'll cut down a bit, because you know, I think it's important, you know, to balance your home life with your rock and roll life, and you know, to have 50-50 would be good. I would like to spend some more time at home, especially with the babies and stuff now. So we'll see what happens next year, but we'll be out there doing something, I'm sure. There was one major split in 1984, I think it was, 84, 85. I went out and did a solo album. I think Francis did one as well, and I think with the intention that we were going to, you know, pursue our solo careers. And funnily enough, I did my album with our current bass player and the drummer that was with us up until fairly recently, 6-7 years ago. And we kind of put the band back together again in 1985 as a different Quo. But I've never felt that we've actually split up. A lot of people said that we have, and I suppose we did do Milton Keynes, didn't we? And said end of the road, because I suppose some people in the band felt it was the last show, you know. But I really hoped that it wouldn't be, because, you know, it would have been such a shame, really, because there was so much left to give. And I think when there's nothing left to give, then is the time to maybe knock it on the head, you know. But I still think that we've got a little bit more to give yet. And the current lineup is so fantastic. This is by far and away, I know there are people out there who love the old original 4 members of Quo, and that was that band, and it was magic. But it wasn't going to last. I think egos, and we were young, you know, and things were going to kind of go wrong, I guess. And indeed they did. But it's led us to this lineup now with Matt Letley on drums and Andrew on keyboard, me and Frame and Rhino. And it's a fantastic lineup. The band is first class. I mean, I don't think it's ever been as good a band as it is now. And long may it continue. Let's see. I've always been very proud of the fact that we've always stuck to our guns as much as we can, you know. We haven't diverted off the track of what is Status Quo and tried to play some other kind of music. I mean, Francis at one stage, you know, brought in quite a lot of country stuff, and we kind of quoed that up, and it was kind of nice, but basically we've always stuck to what we do and what we do best, and that is, you know, playing 12-bar rock boogie. And you know, it's never really floated my boat to think of to go off and play any other kind of music, really. I mean, I sit around at home with an acoustic and, you know, play all sorts. But for Quo collectively, stick to what you do best. I don't think there's any opportunities we've missed out on. Maybe only what I said earlier about America. I think, you know, That's a bit of a shame that that didn't happen. And regrets, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's all very well to say so now, but you know, falling into the whole rock and roll lifestyle and basically losing 10 years of my life, really, and being an absolute idiot because of booze and drugs, and really lucky to have come out the other side of it reasonably sane. And I kind of regret that now. I mean, as I say, it was fun at the time, but if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't go there. And I'd advise anybody else not to, because it's a different world and you just don't know what's going on, and it will shape the rest of your life. I remember Francis and I were walking home from a club in London, walking home to Peckham or Bromley, or getting a bus or walking to a bus stop, and we were chatting away. So if we could hold this together for 5 years, it'd be fantastic. We've got 50 grand in the bank, right? It's enough money to last you a lifetime. And 5 years, that's all we need. And that's how we thought, you know, because when you're young, 5 years seemed like a long, long time. And 50 grand seemed like an awful lot of money. In fact, it still does. And, you know, that's how you dream, really. And you could never believe that it would have gone on this long. And if somebody had turned around and told me, you know, in 40 years' time, you'll still be doing this, I wouldn't have believed it. You would have fallen over, wouldn't you? 40 years, it's a lifetime. And so I guess, you know, in one way, I'm very grateful to the fans and who've kept us where we are. And I'm very proud of what we've achieved, you know. I was told today by somebody who knows that we've had more hits than the Beatles and the Stones put together. And again, you know, if somebody told me that when I was a kid, you'd just laugh. You would never ever dream of anything like that, would you? So overall, it's not been a bad life, really.